It's time for that crossover episode, Locked On Celtics, Locked On Warriors. How will this series go? Who's really confident in their team? Can the Celtics pull this thing off? It's all right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Be ever ready. Recognize the city of champs. Boston, baby, we do what you can't. Locked on number 18, Tatum and Brown, J-team, step back. We gon' wet that and slay teams. Of course the Celtics, who else could it be? Screaming like KG with the Larry O.B. Karalis above average, assessing the team status. Best daily pod, no cap, salary matching. Clutch like Bird the DJ, keep John on replay. Prime time, dapping up the truth on the sideline. Raining J's, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners. B.
Hey there, welcome everybody to a crossover Locked On extravaganza. The only two teams left playing basketball in the NBA, Celtics and Warriors. So, of course, we got to do a crossover Locked On Celtics, Locked On Warriors. I am John Karalis. I host the Locked On Celtics podcast. Cyrus Saatsaz, the host of Locked On Warriors. Both of our shows are free, available everywhere you get your podcasts. Cyrus, how you feeling today, my man?
I mean, literally, I'm still getting over, company video. That's my little nickname for this thing. Otherwise, I'm doing good, man. I mean, I think you and I are both excited. Our teams are in the NBA Finals. It's a special place to be. We're the envy of the other 28 organizations and markets and teams and you name it. So, doing good. I don't know how you're feeling about your team. I'm curious to hear about that. Like, I would love to know first off, maybe we're jumping too soon, but are you as confident as a lot of people, at least on the national stage, are that the Celtics can pull this off?
I mean, I think this is going to be a great series. I think either team has a chance to pull this off. Like we could just start there. Let's just start with this should be fun, right? Like there's you and I can each sit here and make arguments at each other as to why each of our teams is going to win. And like, I will admit, I've had crossovers now with the Nets, with the Bucks, and with the Heat guys. And each one I went in and was like, I'm confident in this, man. This is Celtics are guaranteed. The Celtics are winning these series. I was adamant about it. I got called arrogant over it and all of that stuff. But
Same.
This series, it's the NBA Finals, man, and this is a Warriors team that's very unlike anything the Celtics have faced so far, and I think it's the same thing for you guys, that this Celtics team is unlike what you faced so far in the playoffs, which kind of the finals are supposed to be.
I'll give you pushback on that a little bit. I from day one, I've been saying that and this is where, Celtics fans will think I'm arrogant, and I hope they don't think so, because I have tremendous respect for the Celtics. I really do. I think they're a phenomenal team, and any other year, if the Warriors were not the opponent, I think they're the world champions. But I actually put them in the hierarchy of like the postseason power rankings back when the playoffs started. I had them third. Actually fourth originally. I thought the Bucks were a better team than them, but then when Chris Middleton went down, I didn't think there was any contest there, even though it still went to 7. But I thought, and I still do, I think the Grizzlies were the second best team in the postseason. A lot of people thought it was crazy when I first said it. I'm hearing a lot less accusations of me being crazy now, but a lot of people still think that's wild. But I thought the Grizzlies, I think they're comparable. They're both very long athletic teams. They're both switch-heavy defenses. They both have very few, if any, weaknesses in terms of defensive switches, which is what makes their defenses both very sound. I think the Grizzlies actually had a slightly better three-point shooting team than the Celtics, which made them lethal. And John Morant, I thought, was more of an offensive weapon than anything the Celtics had. No disrespect to Jayson Tatum. I think he's a phenomenal player. Tatum is outstanding. His clutch shooting is second to none in these playoffs. But do you think I'm crazy? I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on what I just said?
I think you're an absolute idiot. No, I'm only kidding. No, it's like Memphis is a really good team. I think the Celtics are better than Memphis, but this is a situation where when you're, I'm a beat writer, and so I'm surrounded by every little minute detail of this team, and so that works both ways, where I'm not as surrounded by every little detail of every other team. But so my pushback is that I think the Celtics came into this as one of the top teams, and them making the NBA Finals should be no real surprise. Their defense has been elite for a reason. And I think I think the one thing that this run has shown is when you're not fully right, like Brooklyn, they'll just roll you. And if you're not fully right, like Milwaukee, and they're just missing one guy, they can make you pay for that, and they can handle the physicality. Like Milwaukee's defense was just so. I joke that it's like they were hitting each other with 2x4s. That Miami did kind of like the same thing. Like these were two wrestling matches, and so now they're getting into something different. So yeah, I mean, again, you can make the argument that Memphis is obviously really, really good. They were what, the second seed in the East, in the West for a reason, right? Or
and the NBA
Yeah.
Don't forget that. So yeah.
So they definitely were right there. So, but regardless, here we are.
Yeah.
And so I have said my comparison is the Celtics have been they've gone 12 rounds with Mike Tyson when you compare like the Milwaukee and the Miami series. Now they got to fight Floyd Mayweather, and that's what the Golden State Warriors are. A champion as well, dominant as well. Just the style is so different. You can't fight Floyd the way you fought Mike. You had to, so
right.
This is where the Celtics, I think, if we're starting with how this series looks just in the 30,000-foot view, my first thing that I'm looking for the Celtics is, how do they switch gears? How do they go from just pound into precision, switching angles, all of that stuff, defending cuts, defending split actions, defending all of this other stuff that requires them to be in certain places and certain times. And if they're not, by like just a fraction of a second, you're going to pay.
So your question is, what are the Warriors going to do to counter that?
Well, yeah. Like, how do you react to like the Celtics? Like, what do you think about the Celtics, being in that position? And then how do the Warriors take advantage of that?
Well, first of all, like I the reason why I love that you said, first of all, that people have been calling you arrogant, because I've been hearing that same thing with each round. But I want to, and a huge reason why I like to remind people this is that the Warriors aren't just champions. They're like a dynasty. I mean, this is, it's very rare for sports teams and players to reach the level they've reached, and they're on the verge of proving even more people wrong. And by winning again without Kevin Durant, because that's a player who, first of all, is calling me out on Twitter right now. So have fun with that if you want to check that out. But secondly, a lot of people thought that this dynasty was largely because of Durant, and without Durant, that, yeah, they won the 2015 title, but people love making excuses. But I think this is, because of injuries and whatnot in that season. But this is going to shut a lot of people up. And I do believe strongly you have to have a special level of killer instinct in terms of your mentality to consistently go to the finals year after year. This is their 6th run in 8 years now. They're going for the 4th world title in 8 years. Now, in terms of how they're going to counter that Celtics defense, which again is stout. There's no doubt in my mind that they are lethal. It's going to be an obstacle. I mean, teams are typically putting up, maybe 100 points a game against them, if that. My counter to that is, first of all, you're right. The Celtics have not faced anybody like the Warriors did in the postseason. I think the Nets were somewhat comparable offensively, given they have that two-headed monster of Durant and Kyrie, but there was just such a drop-off after Kyrie. When you look at the Warriors, at almost any point in the game, they're going to have 4, if not 5 guys in that court that can beat you offensively. Their weak link typically is Draymond Green, who can still, in the closeout game against the Mavericks, he'd put up 17 points. In Game 7 of the 2016 Finals, which was a losing effort, he still put up, I think, 32. So he knows how to score. He just doesn't score because he doesn't have to. Kevon Looney might be considered sort of a weak link, but his post-up game has become exemplary, and he's found ways to score left and right besides his incredible rebounding. So this is a Warriors team that finished number 1 in the NBA in points off screens. And that's going to play tremendously in this series, because while the Celtics are stout, like they're a switch-heavy team, they're obviously a fantastic team, again, especially from aggressiveness. What I see from them that gives me pause is they don't give up. Their work ethic is admirable. One thing that the Warriors have been able to do to other teams that I don't think they're going to do to the Celtics is outplay them. The Celtics are a very well conditioned team, which kind of equals the Warriors. Like the Warriors conditioning is something that is not talked about enough. Jason Kidd alluded to it as an ime-opening thing, because they just will run, and eventually just run the other team out the floor. You know, we talk about other teams getting injured on occasion when they play the Warriors in the playoffs, and it's used frequently as an excuse. But I counter that by saying these injuries oftentimes happen because teams aren't accustomed to the amount of energy needed to expend to keep up with the Warriors off the ball movement. So I do think, like, for example, I don't know what the average was in the postseason for the Celtics defense. I'm guessing it's like 97 points a game. I haven't looked that up. Do you know what that stat is?
I haven't looked up the points per game. I knew their defensive rating is 105.1, which is right around where they were as the number one team in the regular season. I know they're behind Milwaukee, who was 102.7.
Yeah, and Milwaukee, and that was just, again, a fight it out battle between those two. But I would say whatever that point total is, add 10 to that, because again, when the Celtics play the Warriors, you're going to be playing an offense that will have Stephen Curry playing 38 minutes a game, Klay Thompson playing 38 to 40, Wiggins, who has suddenly really emerged as an offensive threat beside his stout defense. To put it in perspective, Wiggins led the Warriors in three-point shooting in the Mavericks series until the last game. Then he went 0 for 7 and kind of reverted back to the mean. But, you know, and then we talked about Draymond and Looney as being sort of weak links, but then you have Jordan Poole coming off the bench. You have someone like Otto Porter Jr., who's no slouch. He's a 40% three-point shooter himself. You have other individuals like Nemanja Bjelica, who might play some minutes. Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga, the two young rookies who have really emerged as players of their own. We have a wild card in Gary Payne II, who I think really mirrors Marcus Smart in a lot of ways as a defensive player. Gary Payne II is wild. There is optimism he's going to be ready for the series. So the Celtics defense is going to be tough. I could see the Warriors still putting 110 on them a game, which by their standards is good. Maybe 105, whatever. And that's why I think the Warriors will win this series ultimately, is because they're just going to be able to outscore the Celtics. As good as the Celtics defense is, and this is where I guess after the break, I know that people hate when I say that word. But when we come back from giving some love to our sponsors, that's where I would love to get your insights, is how are the Celtics going to outscore the Warriors? That is going to be my question to you when we come back.
Okay. So just to a point of reference, 101 is the average opponent points per game these playoffs. Second behind Miami, 100.4. Golden State was 109.
Yeah, they were sixth. Yeah.
So, all right,
Mavericks that up.
While we chew on that.
Sorry, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, while we chew on that, let's get people to chew on some Built Bars, which we have Built Bar granola. Have you had one of these granola bars yet? I have not had one yet, but they
neither
sound
have I.
great.
But I've been wanting those since the moment I started working for this company, because we do these Built Bar reads. And I've tried Built Bars. I love the fact that, again, there's such little sugar in them, right? I mean, sugar is such a toxin for your body. But I've always wanted
the empty Built Bar wrapper from earlier.
There you go. You and David Locke both, man. Yeah.
These granola bars, chocolate peanut butter, chocolate coconut, and white chocolate berry. So in a granola bar, this is just a regular protein bar that I had before, but these are granola bars, which are different than the bars and the puffs, because the granola bars loaded with granola, perfect combination of crunch and chewiness. Just like the bars and puffs, these things are packed with protein, covered in 100% chocolate, 150 calories, 15 grams of protein, 4 grams of sugar in a granola bar like that. That's great for a meal replacement. That's going to change your life. That's great for a snack. That's great for something, as you know, if you want to throw it in the gym bag. And they're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently. So if you want a healthy, delicious granola bar, this is it. This is the one. Head over to built.com. Use that promo code LOCKED15. 15% off your order every single time. Locked15 gets 15% off at built.com. I want to encourage everybody, after making our shows your first listen every day. I know Warriors fans are going to make Locked On Warriors your first listen. Locked On Celtics fans making Locked On Celtics the first listen. Want to encourage people to make Locked On NBA Big Board your second listen every day. Rafael Barlow does a great job. If you're interested in the draft, check him out at Locked On NBA Big Board. Also, we have an important favor to ask all of our listeners. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about the listeners like you. make your favorite Locked On podcast even better. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like, what you don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long. And everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. That's cool. Take our audience survey. Go to lockedonpodcasts.com/survey. And we appreciate your help. Okay. Before we did all that, we talked about how are the Celtics going to outscore the Golden State.
Yeah, and just to really touch on that defensive rating, because I want to add one thing. Everyone seems to be pouring a ton of love on the Celtics defense, based largely on that regular season stat being number one in defense, and rightfully so. But it's important to remember the Warriors were the number one defense in the NBA, both in total points allowed and defensive rating, until Draymond Green was injured in January. And I don't think people should sleep on this Warriors defense. And I was having in my show yesterday with former Warriors head coach and GM Gary St. Jean, I brought this point up with him. I said, how are the Celtics, who look, Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are incredible. I mean, there's no disrespect given to them. These are fantastic star, if not superstar players. But when you look at this roster, for the Celtics, right, you're realistically going to be playing. It's going to be an 8-man bench, most likely. Who knows? Maybe we'll see Stauskas and players like that because the guy can't shoot. Yeah, that's my question to you and to anyone for the Celtics. Like, how are the Celtics going to outscore the Golden State Warriors? Where's that offense going to come from?
So you guys were number one until Draymond got hurt, and Draymond's obviously, I think Draymond probably would have won Defensive Player of the Year if that had continued and he didn't get hurt. But we know Marcus Smart did. But also, he got hurt around the time that Clay got back, and that also, I think, impacted the defense and continues to impact the defense. So I think what the Celtics can do, and this is where I think this swings this series potentially, the Celtics do have places you can target. Now, the thing about targeting is, and I heard you guys talking about this yesterday, you target guys, but you don't want to get caught up in the isolation game. The last thing you want to be able to do is say, okay, hey, look, we know that Clay is not himself and not his, like, normally Clay would not be somebody you target on defense. Now he is. Steph, you want to target him on defense. He's been better. He certainly has bought in a little bit more defensively, but still a guy that you want to target defensively. Smaller, not great. So yeah, sure. Those are spots that you can target, but don't just do that and, swing the ball and have it be like a little pendulum, a metronome your way. You're not Carmelo Anthony jab stepping. You're not James Harden kind of like dribbling between your legs, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, and then trying to find a spot to go. You still have to move. You can target guys, but make quick decisions. And this is where the Celtics really have to get away. And I think because of the speed of what the series is going to be, I think the Celtics can move. They're better when they play faster. So this actually helps out a little bit. Like, I'm dying for the Celtics to play faster.
Interesting. Okay.
They like to play slow. Jayson Tatum and Jaylen, they like to play slow. They love the mismatch hunting because that plays into their ISO wheelhouse. Ime has been great at like getting them to play faster all season long. Pass, cut, move, and open up these seams. I think the Warriors, by virtue of them playing fast, the Celtics will start to play faster and start to play a similar style. I think what you'll end up seeing is two similar style offenses. Granted that Golden State's offense is a better offense. They've got better offensive players in general, and I think their overall cohesiveness, having done this group under Kerr, doing this for a while, even with some new guys, just they know what they're doing. But that Celtics defense is like really damn good. I don't think this Warriors defense is as good as it was at the beginning of the season. I think the Celtics.
Why do you say that? What do you base that on? I've heard that a lot, and I'm curious to know. I never hear why.
I feel like you have Clay. You have guys you're playing more guys who are lesser defenders. You're playing more. You're playing more Clay. You don't have. But now, if you get Gary Payton back, then that does change a little bit. But
and Iguodala, don't forget that too. Iguodala missed almost the entire year, and he's projected to play as well.
Is he going to play?
That's all indicate. It's not official yet, but all indications are Gary Payton II, Andre Iguodala, and Otto Porter Jr.
All right.
are going to be
Well,
a
we'll
go.
see.
Yeah.
Now
So
we'll see. We'll see. Now we'll see if they can, get back into the swing of things and if they're going to be rusty at all. But I still think that the Celtics defense is better. The Celtics offense can be good when it's playing its best. The Celtics, the Warriors defense, it's like the inverse. The Celtics defense is like, yeah, and their offense can be good if they're playing their best. The Warriors offense is like, oh yeah, and their defense can be good if they're playing their best. And you just have that little variance in each side, and it's going to be which one comes through. So how do the Celtics outscore the Warriors? It's by defense. It's by turning them over, which they are prone to do. I think turnovers. Let me throw this back at you.
No, that's you're onto something. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
Who's going to be the team that turns it over less? Because both of our teams have been prone to turnovers that lead to points off turnovers. Like the Celtics lost games against Miami by giving up an insane, disgusting amount of points off of turnovers. Same thing for the Warriors over the course of the playoffs. Which
Correct.
team is going to be the one that gives up the points off of turnovers? That if one can do it and the other one can't, that's it. That might be the series right there.
Let's talk about that when we come back, because you brought up a fantastic point, and I guarantee you that is what keeps Steve Kerr up at night, is those damn turnovers.
I like that. How about we tell people about BetOnline?
Please.
And number one source for all of your betting needs, which put out the odds for game one, which was the Celtics 3.5 point underdogs, or if you want to put it from the Warriors perspective, 3.5 point favorites, which is interesting because 3.5 points, only 3.5 points is
so
interesting.
Much.
What's that?
I said it's not much. That's a small
much,
line.
No.
And I forgot about this. Sorry to interrupt, but like Gary St. Jean brought this up yesterday as well. I totally forgot, and I don't know if there's truth to this or not, but typically in a tight series, he said they give the home team 3 points in general.
There is general kind of like the home team gets a little bit of I don't know what the points is, but if you give them 3, then they're saying like this is basically a half. This is a pick 'em.
Exactly.
I'll be completely honest, and this is going on the Locked On Celtics podcast. I still think the Celtics are going to win this series. Okay. But personally, and I'm not telling people to bet this because I'm terrible at sports betting. So please do not say John said this and I lost money. But what I think is going to happen is I think the Celtics are going to lose, and I think it's going to be by more than 3.5. I feel like game one is going to be like that, just like game one of the Milwaukee series, where the difference between the two series that they just played is going to be so different that Boston's going to be like, oh, crap. These guys are running 100 miles an hour. I never knew people could move this fast. So I think there might be a surprise there.
And what I respect, and just to interrupt, but just to add respect to the Celtics, I don't think your team's lost 2 straight games this whole postseason, correct?
I have not.
Yeah, that's impressive. That shows me that, and that's where your coaching staff is incredible, because that means there's adjustments being made. That means it's commendable to not have a single losing streak in these playoffs so far. So respect.
So if you're laying your money down at BetOnline, maybe you want to follow that path and say, maybe the Celtics can't cover 3.5. Maybe you're interested in that, but they do cover whatever game 2 is. You're just going to have to go back to BetOnline to see what it is, because they're going to have you covered for all of this NBA Finals action, plus Major League Baseball, plus whatever fights you're watching, NFL futures, it's all there. Esports, live betting during the games. So head on over to the website today. You can use your mobile device. You can however you want to do it. BetOnline is where the game starts. We just ask you to please gamble responsibly.
Please
do it
and have fun.
By saying gamble responsibly, it means don't listen to John Karalis, this guy, me, because I am not good at it. I am encouraging people who like to do it and are responsible with it. Go for it. If you're going to do it at BetOnline.
There you go.
Full disclosure, I'm not the guy that's going to be putting money down at BetOnline, because I sit there. I forget what it was. My dad's a gambler, and he called me up one day. It was against the Miami Heat, Celtics Heat, earlier in the season, when the Heat were missing like Lowry and Butler. And my dad's like, in his Greek accent, hey, Zach, what's going to happen with this Celtics game? My friend, he wants to put some money down. And I'm like, I don't know, Dad. Everything, they're missing a bunch of guys. The Celtics are rolling. I feel like the Celtics should win this easy. And the Celtics got rolled. And He was like, I'm like, that's why I don't bet, man. I'm not doing a betting show. I'm doing a Celtics basketball show. So yeah.
Usually the only winner in sports gambling is the bookie, but there are exceptions. But
That's 100% true. Now throw me at a blackjack table and I'm there, man. I'll play that blackjack all day. I'll roll some dice. I'll play some craps. I'm not opposed to laying some money down and letting it ride a little bit, but I know how sports betting can go.
Nice.
So, what are we betting on when it comes to these turnovers here? Because, like I said before, we took this.
Well, you bring up a great point, because that's really what the offense for both these teams, I think, is predicated largely on defense. And because when you cause turnovers, you're not only scoring easier baskets, but you're preventing the other team's defense from being set.
Yep.
And at that point, it's freewheeling. It's hard to predict. It's hard to focus on a single player. If you're playing man D, it's not going to be set, obviously. So I'm with you. These two teams are very similar in that regard, where they thrive off causing turnovers. And in that Grizzlies series, which again is a team I closely compare, I'll put it this way, and I don't know if Celtics fans will like hearing this or not, but like when the Warriors played the Nuggets and the Mavericks, I had no nerves in my system. Like, I'm someone in the last crossover. I mentioned this to Nick Angstad. I've been following this team since like the 80s. So I'm one of these tortured Warriors fans who, until the early 2010s, all I knew was losing. I had to find other teams to root for. I mean, the Warriors missed the playoffs 17 out of 18 years at one point. We had our best players choking their coaches out. It was just a nightmare for decades. And then Lacob takes over, and as I'm sure it starts with ownership, right? If you have great owners, it all rolls downhill from there. And the reverse is true as well. So my giddiness, my happiness comes from the fact that my team that I never thought would be anywhere near as good as this is now a freaking dynasty, and I'm loving it. So just to let people know that, but the point is the Celtics make me nervous. All right. The Grizzlies made me nervous. The Celtics made me nervous. Your team is damn dangerous. Let me ask you this. When are you a football guy as well? Are you a Patriots fan?
Yes, I'm a Patriots fan, but I have not watched football quite a bit. It's been dwindling over the years.
Fair. But the reason why I bring that up is because the Tom Brady Patriots were a dynasty of their own.
Sure, yeah.
And I remember people hating on them. I remember people, if someone who was covering the Patriots said, "Oh, they're going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to get there again. They're going to win their 20th straight AFC Eastern divisional title." And people would accuse them of being cocky. That's all I'm saying with the Warriors. I don't want people to think I'm being cocky. All I'm saying is this team has been damn great for a damn long time, and I just can't bet against them. This is a team that's proven over and over they're going to win. So that's what I'm basing a lot of my confidence in, is on previous history. But the Celtics could pull this off, man. They're a damn good team.
I understand. I understand it. So this is how it's going to get processed. What you just said is going to get a bunch of my listeners in your YouTube comments just calling you all sorts of names.
Yes.
And because maybe the Celtics can pull this off comes off from the fan perspective as gee, what do you mean? Maybe they can pull us off. We're in the finals too, man.
You are.
But I totally get where you're coming from.
Thanks.
And look, this is my number one fear with the Warriors, and why I'm not coming into this with the same kind of confidence as I did in the previous three that got me all of these same accusations. I will tell Celtics fans exactly what I think, because I'm not going to sugarcoat. I believe in, look, I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. And I hope I'm wrong in a lot of this stuff here. My fear with the Warriors is the been there, done that. And that's why I said the Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, those three guys with Kerr, been there, done that, and no fear whatsoever in them. I know if I'm watching, when I watched that Game 7 against Miami and the Celtics going into this prevent offense over the last 4 minutes, and it was just gross. I hated that. That was an 11-0 run. I've said this a million times by now. That was an 11-0 run. If it was against the Warriors, if the Celtics were up 13 against the Warriors playing that way, it wouldn't be Steph coming down with 13 seconds left and a chance to win. It would have been Steph coming down with a 6-point lead and the Celtics going to foul, because that's how much more dangerous the Warriors are. And conversely, if it was the Warriors with a 13-point lead and 4 minutes to go. They're out there trying to make that a 30-point lead over that last 4 minutes. They're coming down. Steph is launching the first good look that he thinks he has. They're going for knockouts. And I know hit singles versus going for home runs, but those guys have the utmost confidence, not just that they're going to make the shots, but if they miss the shots, no problem. We can get back. We can get back on D. We'll just get the ball back. That's the level of confidence with having won the rings and just knowing that I got Dre behind me. I got Clay on that corner. I know I can do, and that, all of these guys that you've added that are really good, Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, all these guys, you know that these guys have that. They've all bought into the culture and all of this stuff. So that's my biggest fear.
Yeah, and it goes both ways. And I'll flip the glowing admiration back to you and say this: when Jayson Tatum, the one shot that stuck out to me, and if you follow basketball, I'm sure you did too. Game 6 of that Bucks series, that those Tatum threes, especially that last one, like only true great players hit those because those were such high pressure shots. Those were deep threes, and Tatum had no hesitation pulling that trigger. And that was eye-opening to me. Like when I saw that, that made me think, like, I didn't like to sleep. A lot of people were sleeping on the Heat. I didn't want to do that either, just because they didn't finish top of the East for no good reason, right? And their system defensively is incredible. So the Boston Celtics struggles in that series were real. It was justifiably so. That Heat team was good. But Jayson Tatum, man, that is, I've been loving him for 3 years. I do another show with Rick Barry and I told the Hall of Famer this like 2 years ago. Like we did this list of it was like a box office list, right? Like who are the 10 players on your list that you just want to spend money to actually go watch? And Tatum was high on my list 2 years ago. I think this kid is fantastic. I shouldn't call him a kid anymore. He's 24 now, but he's a great player. Jaylen Brown gives me a little question. Those 2 missed free throws in Game 6, that was weird. I don't know what you think about that. And then Marcus Smart, Steve Kerr called him, like a guard version of Draymond Green, and rightfully so.
Yep.
Look, I don't think anyone in Dub Nation is comfortable in this series. If anyone is coming out being arrogant about it, I would not be arrogant, but I base my prediction again. It's hard to replicate experience, and these guys just have a killer instinct. I mean, you played yourself. I think you have an idea that like it takes a special mentality to be at the top. Have you been watching that show Winning Time, by the way? Totally changing gears. I'm sorry.
I have not yet. No.
Oh, dude. It took me a while to get into it just because so many people have hated on the individual characterizations, right? The portrayals of the characters, especially Jerry West. I don't know if he's suing the producers or has started to already. But if you take away and don't believe the character portrayals, man, I think especially for a Celtics fan or just even someone from that area, because Red Auerbach is such a huge part of it, and it's phenomenal. I was going to ask you a few questions about the Celtics, but we'll save that maybe for another day if you watch the show. I fell in love with that thing, man. That is, if you're a history buff of the NBA and you love basketball in general, yeah, it gives a lot of kudos to those Celtic great teams. That's the only reason why I brought that up, but never mind.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap this up with this. Because we got to get into my final analysis of this series is simple, that it comes down to the Celtics defense versus, to me, it's the Celtics defense versus the Warriors offense. Because as good as they can be defensively, it's about can you keep the Warriors offense in check enough where you can outscore them and get out into transition. Can you run off of misses? Can you run off of turnovers? To me, it might just simply come down to Robert Williams being healthy.
Huge.
And if he's healthy or healthy enough, then the Celtics have this opportunity to win this series. That's kind of where I come down on this. Like I said, I fear the Warriors' ability to kind of, just because they've been there, to just get past things. This is still a young Celtics team, and I don't think they feel the pressure in the same way as some other young teams would necessarily.
That's fair.
But it's still a young team, and this is their first crack at a championship.
Experienced team, though. Like, you have your own experience. Like I tell people this as well. Like, even though you haven't won a championship, this team, as young as they are, have been through a lot of postseason battles, and you can't disregard that. Like, believe me, there is a respectable level of fear from the Warriors and from Dub Nation for the Celtics. So don't mistake anything I'm saying today with lack of that.
So can the Celtics defense do what I think it's going to do? I think yes. I'm not going to come out here and say, I admit, I'm not saying this with the exact amount of confidence that I had before, because I would have been surprised if Brooklyn won. I wouldn't have been surprised necessarily, but I would have thought, like, I thought for sure the Celtics were winning against Milwaukee. I thought for sure the Celtics were winning against Miami. I am not sure how this series is going to go. If you say Warriors in 7, I'm okay with, I would not be surprised Warriors in 7. I would not be surprised Celtics in 7. I'm going to say Celtics in 7 because I think their defense, I'm just going to go with the defense. I'm also going to go with Ime Udoka and his confidence in what he's built with this team. I think that between him, Al Horford, Marcus Smart, I think the defense is going to be good enough that they're going to be able to run out and get into transition enough. The road hasn't mattered to the Celtics. They have a better road record in the playoffs. So I don't have a fear. I think they're going to get probably worked in game 1, and they have a chance to win game 2. And then who knows how it's going to go from there. But I still think it's going to be Celtics in 7. But it might come down to somebody with a last-second shot to decide the series. That's how close I think this is going to be.
I will say this. I hope it doesn't get to that point. Because watching what Jayson Tatum did freaked me out. I want to add some love to Brad Stevens too, because it was weird a year ago when he got promoted to the front office position, but he's responded like incredibly. The trade for Al Horford, getting rid of Dennis Schroeder early enough, realizing that was not a good move, trading Josh Richardson, which was just, he was not a good fit. Because I feel like all the switches that turned this team around started with those moves, right? It wasn't 100%. Working until they got rid of him and said, Marcus Smart, you're the guy, go for it. And then obviously, just the tremendous talent they have in general. You're right about one thing, undoubtedly, which is that health is going to play a vitally huge part in this series, not only because of Marcus Smart and Robert Williams III's injuries. And why is he called Time Lord, by the way? Can you enlighten me on that? I've been calling this guy Time Lord for like 2 years, and I don't know why.
Time Lord is it's born out of what we used to call Weird Celtics Twitter, which was this little group of just bizarre, like wonderfully bizarre, beautiful minds. It's not quite the same anymore, but God, I love those people. They're super smart. I think Time Lord is it's from one of those, like maybe a Doctor Who type of sci-fi show or something like that. But it was a joke at the media's expense, because when he first came out, there were questions about his maturity and so on. And he like missed the team plane, missed the plane for the first practice, missed the first Zoom, like media conference call back then. They didn't do this on Zoom. So like immediately, like there was like, oh, here he is, like blah, blah, blah. He's already missing this. And so this weird Celtics Twitter created the Time Lord, which was, he is above the mere concept, the construct of time and all of that. Like it was a joke at the media's expense. Now you hear it on ESPN. You hear people say, well, it was a joke at Rob's expense. It's not. It's a joke at the people who made that an important thing, that he was missing those things. And they were like, no, it's not important. He's just above. He moves on a different plane of time where he didn't miss that. He's moved past that, or something like weird stuff like that. I miss that weird Celtics Twitter, man. Those guys.
And look, he's an incredible center. I didn't really get a good taste of him until that second game they played, and he stuck out. He's an immovable force on that court. And yeah, you're right. The health factor is going to be huge, because not only for those two players for the Celtics, but for the Warriors. The Warriors have Andre Iguodala, who he made a brief appearance in the Nuggets series. I think he played 3 games and looked fantastic. And then he had what many originally thought was just like a stiff neck, and it's turned into him missing nearly the entire postseason as a result of that. But so if Iguodala plays, Gary Payton II seems to be on track incredibly to come back from that broken elbow to play in game 1 in the series. Otto Porter Jr. missed the 2 straight closeout games against both the Grizzlies and the Mavericks, and he seems to be a go. So I think the health is going to be huge. And what I've told my fans, and this is where, again, Celtics fans are going to hate me for this, but I do believe that if the Warriors are fully healthy, and that includes Iguodala out there playing, and Gary Payton II and Otto Porter Jr., the Warriors can finish this in 5. And the reason why I say that, and I know that sounds arrogant, and just let me explain, please. I say that because while it's true the Celtics have been incredibly dominant on the road, the Warriors have been equally, if not more so, dominant at home. They haven't lost a single home game yet. I don't see Chase Center being at that same level as these other crowds that they've gone to so far. I've heard people diminish Chase Center, saying it doesn't have the same energy or noise as a Oracle Arena, which I'm now seeing is not true. I'm giving a lot of respect to that Chase Center crowd for making the noise and bringing the intimidation that they used to bring at the previous place. I think they're going to hold court at home. And the question is whether or not the Warriors will win on the road. But I will also say this, that if they're not healthy, then I do think this series is going to go 7. I don't want it to go 7 because I don't want to see Jayson Tatum putting up that game-winning shot. I have too many traumatic memories still of Kyrie Irving when he did so a few years back. So, but yeah, that is my prediction. These are just predictions. I have nothing but respect for the Celtics. I do. There is legitimate fear. I just feel like a dynasty is the team that's going to come out here. And John, man, everyone said you're the nicest person ever. You just merely confirmed it. It was really nice meeting you, man. This was fun.
Thanks, man. It'll be interesting to see if you're correct. I think these two teams have played each other very closely the whole time.
They have.
If there's one result that would surprise me, it's your prediction, because I don't think the Celtics are going out quite like that. But hey, it's possible. The Warriors, you never know. But I appreciate it. Appreciate the crossover. I'm just gonna tell you, get ready for a bunch of Celtics fans in your mentions, man, because I didn't have any in the Nuggets series, and then or the Grizzlies either, really, not much. But then Nick Angstad sent the Mavericks crew, because you and Nick, I think, have the 2 most popular Locked On shows. I never saw anything like that. When the Warriors played the Mavericks, all shows on another level, though. Yeah, like Locked On Mavericks has that craziness.
But I'm already seeing it. And look, I'll just say this again. I have tremendous respect. Like the Mavericks people, I kind of understood why they were coming after me, because I was dismissive. I did not think the Mavericks had a chance in hell of winning that series. But the Celtics, they make me nervous. They do. Like your team, the Celtics are a legitimately great team. I have faith in this Warriors team. I just think they're that good. And that's the reason why I make my pick. But it was a pleasure, John. Thank you, man.
Yeah, man. It was good. We'll revisit this crossword. Now we've got 2 days off in between a lot of these games. So much more opportunity to have more crossovers to come back and revisit why you were so horribly wrong. Cyrus Saatsaz at Dog Surf Roadshow. I'm John Karalis at John_Karalis. Have fun with each other, fan bases. Keep it respectable. Keep it above board. We respect each other, even though we might think each other is wrong. Thanks for listening. Make these shows your first listen every day, and make the other one your second listen every day. We're going to get good both sides perspective throughout the course of the series. So make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. And make sure you're sharing the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to both Locked On Celtics and Locked On Warriors right here on the Locked On Podcast Network.